What happens to the rule of law when the very institution designed to enforce it becomes paralyzed? Not by some external force, but, well, by a combination of aggressive political loyalty and just crippling internal fear. That is the essential and, frankly, chilling question at the heart of the comprehensive overview we're doing today. We want you to discover a new, in-depth approach to book coverage with this extended summary. Now, unlike our previous review, which offers a more focused analysis, this feature delivers a really comprehensive overview, tracing the intellectual roots, the key arguments, and the real-world impact of this subject. If you appreciate this expanded format and find it helpful, please let us know. Your feedback really will help shape future content.
You are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM for deeper, more dynamic book summaries. And today we are diving into Injustice, How Politics and Fear Vanquished America's Justice Department. It's a meticulously reported work by the Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalists Leonnig and Davis.
Yeah, published in 2025, this piece of investigative nonfiction covers that, well, profoundly turbulent period between 2016 and 2025.
Yeah.
And the core thesis, it's pretty dramatic. The book documents how the Justice Department, the DOJ, was essentially transformed from what's supposed to be a neutral law enforcement agency into, well, a functional tool swayed by pure political interests.
And what's fascinating here, the book argues the DOJ didn't just bend to pressure, it functionally bifurcated. It seems loyalty became the new measure of legal competence almost. It details the pressures under both the Trump and then the Biden administrations, showing how these competing dynamics, first partisanship, then the subsequent maybe overcautious paralysis, fundamentally changed the DOJ's ability to act decisively, especially regarding the events around the 2020 election and January 6th.
Okay, let's unpack that first wave then. That transformation starting around 2016 through 2020. The setting is mostly Washington, D.C., right? Amidst this backdrop of widespread distrust of institutions. But the authors really emphasize that Donald Trump entered office with a crystal clear, even stated agenda to weaponize the Justice Department for his own personal and political benefit.
And the book provides incredible detail on the internal mechanics of that pressure, how officials were repeatedly, let's say, instructed to shield Trump and target rivals, career staff, dedicated FBI agents. They found themselves in an immediate, what the book calls, an ongoing war for the soul of the department.
And that war wasn't fought quietly behind closed doors, was it? The book recounts specific, sometimes painful anecdotes. Career professionals facing public humiliation, serious career setbacks, simply for trying to stick to the rules, the established procedures.
Exactly. For example, the authors describe how agents and lawyers involved in politically sensitive investigations were maybe not suddenly, but decisively pulled off cases, sometimes moved to, administrative Siberia, or even outright attacked in political rallies on social media. It sent a clear signal, sticking to the old legal norms. That was now a career liability.
Right. And if we look at the attorneys general during that time, the book sort of frames them as central figures in executing this agenda. Jeff Sessions faced that immediate political pressure, and then, maybe most notably, Bill Barr. The insight isn't just that they were political appointees, but how they operationalized that politicization.
Yes, how it worked day to day.
Can you give us a concrete example of that operationalization, something from the book?
Absolutely. The book really highlights Barr's decisions to intervene quite overtly in ongoing prosecutions. For instance, the authors detail how Barr's DOJ intervened in the prosecution of Roger Stone, a longtime Trump ally. Prosecutors were overruled, and a drastically reduced sentencing recommendation was submitted instead. Yeah, the message sent internally was unmistakable. Loyalty could supersede standard prosecutorial procedure. This period really established the political playbook for using the DOJ to protect friends and punish adversaries.
It's quite jarring, then, to read how the threat, according to the authors, moved from that deliberate, aggressive politicization under Trump to what they call this self-inflicted paralysis under Biden. It almost sounds like a new form of institutional failure, maybe born out of trauma from the previous years.
That's precisely the nuance the book tries to capture as it moves into the Biden administration. Attorney General Merrick Garland came in, presented as this highly ethical, nonpartisan figure, intentionally trying to be the exact opposite of the previous political leadership. But the book argues that his stringent, almost rigid, cautious approach to restoring independence actually created a new crippling problem: investigative paralysis.
But hang on, wasn't that calculated risk, that intense fear of appearing partisan? Wasn't that understandable given the political chaos they inherited? I mean, did the authors explore the counter-argument that maybe extreme caution was seen as the only way to retain legitimacy long-term?
They definitely acknowledge the ethical motivation behind it, but they critique the strategic outcome. The book strongly suggests that Garland and his team were so deeply hesitant, so worried about aggressively pursuing Trump for election interference, or his role in January 6, 2021, that they allowed their fear of being accused of partisanship to really hobble their ability to act decisively against what they saw as genuine threats.
So they were more afraid of the political optics than the systemic danger itself.
That seems to be the core argument the authors make, yes.
So the immediate action was narrow. The book documents how, instead of targeting the higher-ups, the sort of broader orchestration of the insurrection, the DOJ focused almost exclusively on prosecuting the rioters themselves, the foot soldiers, so to speak.
Correct. That's what the reporting indicates. Internal investigations into Trump's larger, perhaps top-down involvement were either significantly delayed or sometimes even suspended out of this sheer caution. And this caution, the authors argue, allowed the volatile political situation to just fester. The book really positions Garland's character as key to this. His deeply held belief in nonpartisanship inadvertently led to an approach that was just too slow, too timid for the scale of the crisis. It shaped a legacy of inaction that persisted until, well, external forces eventually compelled them to move more decisively.
And that leads us nicely to those external pressures, the forces that finally broke through that cautious barrier. The book highlights the unlikely heroes of this saga, the House Select Committee.
Yes, and what's remarkable, as the book meticulously details, is that this political body, the House Committee, ended up doing the aggressive investigative legwork, the kind of work that the professional law enforcement body, the DOJ, seemed too nervous to do at the time. The committee aggressively pursued Trump's direct role in January 6th, compiled critical evidence, and conducted, frankly, far deeper and faster investigations than the DOJ was willing to pursue in real time.
How did they manage that? How did the committee achieve that critical distinction when the DOJ, with all its resources, couldn't or wouldn't?
Well, the book pinpoints the committee's breakthrough with evidence regarding the fake electors as a crucial turning point. For anyone unfamiliar, this was the scheme to submit false, unauthorized slates of electoral votes to Congress, basically trying to fraudulently overturn the election results. That specific discovery, according to the book, was so substantial, so clearly outlining potential criminal intent, that it finally started to upend the cautious, slow-moving approach the DOJ had clung to.
So the clarity of that specific evidence forced movement. And we see the DOJ's previous reticence highlighted by, two significant delays,
Right.
The book mentions. First, that incredibly slow pace toward investigating the classified documents recovered at Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
And second, the very late appointment of special counsel Jack Smith. It really speaks volumes that these decisive actions seemingly only occurred after the political landscape, and this overwhelming external evidence had already pushed the conversation significantly forward.
Exactly. And this whole story, this narrative of institutional vulnerability, the struggle for norms, it raises deeper questions. Questions about how institutions handle existential pressure and maybe the limits of caution in governance. If you want to dive even further into this kind of philosophical struggle, you should check out Mindful Moments, our YouTube channel. It offers AI book analysis, summaries, and critiques, really enabling inspiring reflection and rational thought. And this type of analysis is particularly valuable, I think, especially for aspiring authors looking to understand how these high-stakes nonfiction narratives are put together.
Good point. Diving back into the book's analysis then, the authors synthesize these events into these larger, overarching themes of institutional decay. This isn't just a story about two presidents or two attorneys general. It's about the slow erosion of an entire governmental body's capacity to function as intended.
The core themes, as the authors lay them out, are really institutional vulnerability, political overreach, bureaucratic stagnation, and this profound challenge of preserving the rule of law when leaders, at multiple levels, mind you, prioritize self-preservation or political alignment over genuine justice. The book details a palpable shift from traditional DOJ independence, a long-held tradition, almost a creed, to a new culture that's highly defensive and, well, overtly fearful.
And it's that cultural shift that might be the lasting scar, right? Career officials, FBI agents, DOJ staff who tried to uphold those institutional norms found themselves either facing constant intimidation or maybe being forced into quiet compliance, leading to a breakdown in operational effectiveness, the book suggests.
Precisely. The book uses specific character profiles to really drive home this sense of decay. Donald Trump is shown, repeatedly, pressuring and attempting to weaponize the department, often through intermediaries. The narrative also touches upon figures like Pam Bondi, described as fiercely loyal, taking actions that signal a deepening, a normalization almost, of politicization. And while the book primarily covers 2016 to 2025, the authors do sort of explain that the trajectory set by these events points towards potentially even greater abuses of power in any future administration that might seek to replicate this model.
It sounds like a chilling read. Reviewers have, by and large, praised the book for its meticulous reporting, its deep access to internal sources, and, yeah, its chilling account of the DOJ's internal decay. It really underlines the importance of understanding these contemporary threats to American governance by showing not just what happened, but how the very mechanisms of justice were functionally broken or strained.
Which leads to the final, really provocative thought the book leaves you with. If the institutions designed to protect democracy become more afraid of being accused of partisanship than they are of actually stopping potential crimes, then how can the public possibly trust that justice is actually being served? That's the essential challenge this summary points to. How do institutions survive the political fight without losing their very purpose?
That is a powerful thought to consider. For more on this, click the link on screen for our in-depth book critique. And please subscribe, share, consider purchasing the book via the link, and above all, think rationally.
And you can see many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.